Welcome to the Myofascial Magic in Action podcast. My name's Joanne Avison, and I'm delighted to have my colleague, co-founder and dear friend, Paul Thornley with me. Hi, Paul. How are
Great,
you?
Joanne. Great to see you.
So, today's subject we've been asked about is basically pattern interrupt. What's that got to do with the myofascial system of the body, the structure of the body, and why is it so important? And what I wanted to talk about was really that when we say pattern interrupt, I think what we mean by that is when someone is going down a repetitive strain pattern repeat in what they're doing. So, for example, they may be what we would call overtraining in the gym, or they may be overtraining in the ballet class, for example. What we see on our bodywork table is what we call a form of repetitive strain injury or excessive strain injury, where the appropriate stress for that body to bring it to the shape it needs to be in has been exceeded, and that person is now moving towards injury. And I think people don't realize how easily they can fall into that pattern. And it's something I see a lot on my bodywork table. And it's not that I'm trying to stop the ballet dancer from training. It's not that I'm stopping the person that absolutely adores going to the gym 3 to 6 times a week from going to the gym 3 to 6 times a week. It's the understanding of these excessive approaches to their body limit. So what have you got to say about pattern interrupt generally, Paul? And then we'll look at some examples in the ballet class and what we can do to help them, some examples in the gym and what they can do to help themselves, more importantly. And then let's look at, the yous and me's of this world, the 40 to 60 something person who just wants to move more easily. So before we go down looking at those three different, the two extremes and the middleman, as it were, or woman, person, what do you say particularly about excessive strain? Because I know we both see it a lot on our bodywork tables.
We do. That's why we exist, right? That's why we have come to where we've arrived in our careers, because we see it so frequently. And I've said this before on many podcasts, and I keep saying it, there is nothing more heartbreaking than watching somebody who's really passionate about doing a type of movement that they love and really enjoy. And it's the doing of that very much passion so frequently that stops them being able to do it as they reach the threshold of that capability. And it's just because they've overwhelmed their system by doing it in one way and not really been aware or familiar of how their body is going to transform because of this repetitive performance in that particular style.
So let's give some examples of that. I mean, I know I see this where I've seen an athlete in their mid-30s who's absolutely on their A game, and suddenly they've started having injuries. They're elite, and they've suddenly started having injuries, and they're repeating what they've always done, but it's not working. Or we've got the young guy, early 30s, for example, training, beautiful musculature, that absolutely fabulous, pecs, decs, lats, biceps, they all look amazing. Dislocated shoulder, and then the other one goes, and it's like, hang on a minute, mate, we need to shift the perspective. Or you've got the ballet dancer who has all those beautiful extended splits and twists and turns, but can't hold a posture. So what kind of things do you see, Paul?
Well, all of the above, because that's the thing. People are really passionate about the thing they like doing. They throw themselves all in on that one particular style, and they're not often aware that they're creating the cracks within the framework. They're just not aware because they're enjoying it. And there's that adrenaline, there's that participation, there's that feeling, that limitation or restriction or discomfort. And they've been told by other people participating in the same thing, that's normal. Just keep going. Let's do a recovery strategy where you'll go and have a massage, or you'll do one of the myriad of the rehabilitative strategies that are out there to get through that discomfort phase, but keep doing the same thing. And it's only when the cracks really open up and now they're unable to continue their daily practice of whatever that might be. And then they have to go to the rehabilitation world, the medical, the pharmacy world, and go, can you help me? And now the cracks are wide open. And now you're looking for a specialist to show you how to reintroduce refinement to your body to get you back to where you were before you were if you're almost like the straw that broke the camel's back, the last thing. And that's the whole definition of rehabilitation, to get you back to where you were pre-injury.
And I think it's a brilliant point, because really what myofascial magic in action is all about, and there's the foundations in medical exercise and protocol, is some people have asked me, oh, it's just another protocol and it's got your name on it. And I'm like, no, really, trust me, it's not. This is like micro movement medicine. And we use it because we're so well trained, we can actually see it coming. And I've worked with very young athletes as well. The other problem where you've got a young girl, 14, 15, being trained with 18-year-old lads. And of course, it's so highlighted and obvious. They have completely different body structure, completely different hormone patterns, and their soft tissue matrix behaves completely differently. And yet we throw the protocols at them as if they just need to step up to the plate to get there. And, I was listening to a podcast recently where a doctor was describing these fabulous cold therapies, and they behave completely differently in the female body to the male, because we're designed differently. And these fundamentals are so crucial to understanding myofascial magic. I mean, it's science, actually, in that the magic part is that when you join the science with the spirit of the motion, the person feels $1 million, because their rehab, if you will, has just very quietly whispered this pattern interrupt down the road of too much of what
that's a whole can of worms that we really should open, but people are not willing to look into it, especially industries like where the kids are involved and they're going through their own developmental process, be it young man, young woman, all the way through the adolescence into adulthood. And they're going through their own journey, depending on where they're based, what location they are, what's their own academic preference or physical prowess. They're going to follow their own path depending on their peer group influences. But honestly, that Pandora's box needs to be open, because without going down a rabbit hole we don't want to go down, but physical education in those early developmental years should be more than, oh, it's raining, we're definitely going to do cross country. It should be like, we have this audience in front of us, and we should be telling these young people what they're made of and how these movement choices are going to do in these early years, these early formative years, can really decide on the direction of their sporting choices. Some will go into an actual career. Others will just because they enjoy doing it as a hobby. And others that are not doing it at those early years because they don't like PE. They don't like getting into the outfits we have to wear. They don't like the environment. They're more academic or more, I don't want to say nerdy, but they're more creative orientated. But if they knew the benefits of it in those early years, we wouldn't have to be dealing with the ramifications of this much later on in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we talk about pattern interrupt, let's take 3 examples. Let's first of all start with the young ballet dancers. For example, mostly female, they tend to be. That's just the demographic, how it is, but not necessarily. But there's this huge emphasis on what we're going to call tensionally biased movement, where we've got a scale, if you like, and they're at the very flexible end of that scale or that spectrum. And then we're going to look at the gym enthusiast, where it's all about building the muscles and the strength, and we're going to call that the fixed end. Now, please understand, I am absolutely not accusing anybody of being fixed or accusing them of being flexible. What I want people to think about here is that if you like, the somatic archetype of the fixed body is maybe a type you're born with, maybe needs a little bit more flexibility. And the somatic archetype of the very flexible body, like mine, for example, maybe needs a little bit more fixed approach. But here's the key, and I really want to emphasize this to our listeners. What we're talking about here is bringing balance to the profile rather than overworking the protocol. Now, all exercise modalities in the West are very biased towards army training, and you hear very often about boot camps and intensives and places where you can immerse yourself into it and you come out feeling strong and fabulous. But if you keep repeating the same things, the body will interrupt the pattern, right? And break at one level or collapse.
Here's the problem with this, and this is our beef with the health and fitness industry. It is based on high intensity army orientated approaches to exercise and health.
Yeah.
But let's look at
Yeah.
the armies around the world. They're very small into consideration of the population that the army is designed to defend or serve. And there's a reason for that. People don't want to be in the army. It's too disciplined. It takes away your freedom. And there's
You were in the Air Force, Paul.
I
You
was
know
considering
what it's
it.
like, and I know how valuable that training was. You
But
loved it,
but
didn't you?
that's not my point. There is some people that are designed and have the characters that will thrive in that environment and will love it.
Yeah.
And they'll stay in for
Yeah.
decades. They'll absolutely love it, and they'll thrive in that community and the friends you make and the activities you get to take part in. Some of them are really dangerous. Some of it's very mundane and boring. But over your career span, it's bloody good fun. But a lot of people don't like the disciplined nature of it. And it is the disciplined nature where you are subservient to rank and formula. You have to do as you're told to an order. And you are allowed to use, especially in the British one, we're considered quite good. But you are allowed to improvise. You are allowed to use your noggin. You don't have to just copy and paste and not question something, but you have to know how to question it. You're encouraged to do that. Well, likewise, when you transfer that approach into the fitness facilities around the world, the vast majority of people don't like fitness because it is too disciplined. You have to get out of your house, get your bag from the door, don't trip over it on your way out, and go to a facility and do your exercise. And it's really hard because it's not nice. Some people love it and some people get addicted to it, whatever it be, a game of squash, a game of football, a weight session, or one of these dancing or other these creative modalities like Pilates, yoga, and such forth. But those that are disciplined are then open to hearing what we're going to tell them, that because they want to continue doing it. And they're ready to hear it. And they're like, oh, wow, really? I'm overdoing it? Well, no problem then, because I want to be successful at this. So what other approaches and what other complementary styles can I incorporate so I get a much more rounded workout? So I'm not at the ends of the spectrum where I'm too bendy or I'm too fixed. I get the combination of being flexible enough to enhance the strength I have so I don't overstrain and I don't oversprain myself repetitively. I can recover quicker. Should I get an injury, my body knows how to reorganize and recover in a timely fashion. However, most people are not there. They're in the middle and they're not sure which way to go. And of course, marketing is good in it. And people want the stuff that transforms you like this. And it's a soundbite to get them in. But it's really intimidating these environments where they're looking at the instructor who can do things without even breathing half the time. They're just doing it like second nature. But they've dedicated a lot of their life to learning how to make it look so effortless and so graceful, whether it's lifting weights or it's dancing or anything in between.
But they know the measure of what they're
Correct.
doing. And I know one of the things thrilled me, in our live coaching calls inside the course, Myofascial Magic in Action. And we had last week somebody who was just transforming the work she's doing as a personal trainer with people just by bringing in this very intelligent sequence, this tried and tested way of, let's say, prehabbing. And I wanted to give people a bit of a taste of that. So, Paul, talk to us a little bit about the ballet dancers that have these beautiful long limbs. They can literally lie on their backs or their fronts and put their legs in the splits to the sides without even thinking about it. And we know what's coming. We know what's coming down the pike for them in years' time. And they're also not necessarily organizing well within what they're doing. So how can they optimize? What's the pattern interrupt they need to do in the flexy end of the, let's say, the spectrum? And then we'll look at the fixed end in a minute. So first of all, you're lovely ballet dancers. I know you were working with them this morning.
And it's such a joy to see people who can move so well. It is literally just makes you smile. It's like I get my own private show every week of the great dancers gracefully moving through their various choreographies, and when they're even practicing certain rhythms and routines that allow them to create very elaborate and simple choreography, depending on where they're going in that particular stage of their training. But what they often do, of course, they're biased to going as far apart as possible. They live in a lateral world where they're in this thing called turn out, and they have very extreme shapes of their spine for posture and for presentation. And what I've found over the few years that I've been working with the guys, and I was invited to Dubai, their main tutor, because we wanted to have an echoing voice. So I helped the main tutor get out of a predicament they found themselves in, and we removed static stretching. We incorporated all the myofascial magic in action, micro movements, to teach and educate how to anticipate where your transitions are going to be flawed, and you're not going to have the ability to anticipate changes of rhythm. And we organized that, and we found it worked so well, we said we'd introduce it to the pre-professionals. And they age from quite young all the way up to 18, and then they go into their adult dancing careers. So what we do, we put them in positions where they fail, because they're so familiar about putting the legs in the air and literally standing like the letter I. Their leg can literally come to the side of the ear, most of them, dead straight, but they hold it. But when they take that away and you ask them then to do any sort of movement, they collapse, or you ask them to transition to another shape. So they're all very capable and predisposed to having access to extreme flexibility, but the sensation they still get is of tightness. And it really puzzles them. They're like, well, I don't understand why I'm tight if I can do this. And what's been such a joy is me having the opportunity to explain what that sensation is. Because tightness is not a thing. It's a sensation based on a certain movement style. And it's your body whispering to you, and then all of a sudden talking to you, and then screaming at you to stop stretching it.
Yeah.
And once you, and then once they hear that and they realize, oh, wow, if I just did it this way, I don't get the same sensory response. I didn't lose the range I'm capable of having. I'm just more capable of utilizing it in a much more performance way that I don't suffer from. I benefit and I can repeat more frequently. And
so they have command over the movement. So you basically interrupted the pattern of stretching and overstretching, and this business of leaning into the tissue till muscle creep extends it, and it scares me. And trust me, I am up against opposition in the yoga industry, as it were, because some people think yoga literally is the equivalent of stretching, and ultimately, if you could move like a ballet dancer, you would be at your best. That is the goal. And I just sit there absolutely freaking out at the physiology of that. It's just wrong. And what you're saying is you go to these beautiful dancers and you bring them back to their ability to command where their poise is. They can hold that posture and then command that movement.
What the main thing they've got to learn, because we talk about this all the time and it makes sense to us because it's our language, but explaining it to their young ears so that they can interpret it, translate it into motion, takes time, because they're so influenced by their peers and the people they're aspiring to emulate, the stars of the show. And they know the torturous training sessions they've gone through to do that. And it's hard work and it's quite abusive on their body, but there's a pleasure to it because they're succeeding to some level. But only the other day, it was such a joy when one of them came to me who has been really hard work because she has a certain style of learning, and she finds it really hard to change anything at all in her bias to being so hypermobile and having access to these huge ranges. And she didn't understand why I was trying to restrict it slightly so that she could attain more control, so she could decelerate at any time she wanted to. Like, we don't put the emergency brakes on the car. You want to skid. You want to use your ABS system where you manage and you can change directions. And if you're choosing to slow down, because it's your choice, because you were quick enough to anticipate where you needed to alter the journey of motion. And she came the other day, and this is 3 years in the training of this particular lady. And it's been a labor of love and patience, because I don't know how to deal with her learning difficulties, but I do understand how she moves. So I took my understanding of physiology and I collaborated with other people that knew how to communicate with her so that I got my point to her through practical experience and through interactions. It took time and patience from each parties, but she came with it and she went, "Paul, you're so smart." And I said, "Well, I'm very flattered. I don't hear that very often, but thank you." I said, "What do you mean?" She went, "It's the first time today I really understand what you meant. But I understand how patient you've been to get there, and now I get it." I went, "Oh." And then she showed me. And she showed me what she meant by what she said, "Get it." And she stood in front of me, and without even changing breath, she took a leg and brought it to the side of her head and lifted it up. And she went, "I can't keep it there." And when I let it go, I fall over. My whole body stiffens to defend myself, and then I collapse. So I realized that getting it there, yes, is impressive, but it's not useful to the next sequence of movement that I need to do. So by restricting how
Brilliant.
far I go, I actually have more capability to include more movement options. And I said, see, now you're becoming a dance choreographer. You're now understanding where the boundaries of limitations should be, so you're more capable and you're more artistic rather than limited by your bias. And she went, yeah. And I was so like, wow, I got my message to one of them. And that's what it is. It's like these little wins along the way. And she needs more strength to accommodate this extreme range she has, so it can help this deceleration phase, which is so important in these lovely
And
artistic
so
motions.
absolutely, and it's so underrated. So that's such a brilliant example of a pattern interrupt for what we would call an
Yeah.
over-tensioned architecture. So let's look at the other side. We've got the gym enthusiast who's been going to the gym, I don't know what, daily or at least 3 times a week and really fighting to increase those
Mm.
weights. And let's say fabulous physique, looking amazing, early 30s, dislocates a shoulder. I know you and I have both got clients with this situation, because actually there is sometimes there's some hypermobility within the actual
Mhm.
joints. So they have to have a very, very fine balance, right, at the fixed end of the
Yep.
spectrum between overdeveloping those muscles, because once the muscle gasters, the what we call the belly of the muscle, is too big for the attachment of the tendinous part that attaches to actually the periost of the bone. I think people think that muscles are attached to bones, and they're not. And I'll never forget the first day Tom Myers ever walked into a studio in 1998 in Brighton with me, and he stood there looking more like a film star than a body worker, I must say. But he had his sunglasses on his head and his jacket on, and he went, "There ain't no muscle connected to no bone nowhere in no body." And I stood there and went, I have to understand what that means. And I've dedicated, I mean, where are we? 2025. It's damn nearly 30 years since I met him. Um, Dedicated so much time and to learning and seeing, as we do in the lab, that myofascial, let's call them units, if you like, are basically one continuity tacked down in hundreds of places in the body, right? And the belly bit of the petal shape, the gaster, is what gets built when you increase muscle protein rapidly. And the tendinous part is almost like where you twist a sweet wrapper to enclose a sweet in a wrapping, but it's running through the whole muscle. And what happens is it's actually myofascia in complete continuity with tendinous fascia in complete continuity with whatever surrounding fascia it's attached to. Now, that may be the periost of the bone, and it may be the myofascia of an associate or neighboring musculature. And I think people think it's all fixed or it can be nailed down, because that's what happens in surgery. They use screws and
Yep.
pins, right? But not in the body. And I find myself explaining to people, if you keep doing this at the intensity that you're working at now, ultimately there's going to come a point where those muscle gasters, those bellies, are too big for the structure that they require to be attached to underneath. And it's not the bone, it's the surrounding tissue. And what that means is they'll pop. And I have seen, there's a movie on YouTube, I think, of somebody popping the pectoralis, let's say,
Mhm.
suite. Another person, the quadriceps suite, and there's actually at least 5 quadriceps. So, not everybody has the same organization, and literally snap the tendon going into the patella tendon, and it rolled up the leg. It's a vicious, heinous injury. It is murderous to repair. And I can't watch people put themselves through it because they think they can just keep compression bias training and not do this powerful pattern interrupt. That, am I right in thinking that just by easing on the weight and increasing on the repetition, it's actually giving the body a chance to find its way to balance?
What is balance to that person? This is the conversation at large.
Yeah.
They want
Yeah.
muscle mass. They're
Yeah.
told it's the most healthiest thing in the body. The more of it they have, the healthier they are. But that's like saying I bought a one-bedroom apartment and I'm going to build an extension to it. And I keep putting more bricks on the outside to make the structure bigger, but not understand that the structural foundations can't accommodate more structure without transforming negatively. And eventually something will
Yeah.
break. And this is unfortunate in that realm, from the flexible end of the spectrum to the fixed end of the spectrum. They're trying to build too much mass on a structure that is not able to transform in the timely fashion to keep up with the muscular bulk
Yeah.
being applied to it. And something
Yeah.
must give. And it's
Yeah.
as simple as that. It's like there's just too much weight onto a structure that's not been had time to transform to accommodate the new bulk, the new strength overload, because muscle, fascia, bone, and all of the associated relations within them, they all transform at a different time rate, a different time
Yeah,
frame.
absolutely. That's how we form. I mean, we actually form under tension because the bone grows so much faster than the surrounding tissues. That's
Correct.
how we form
Yeah,
our
we know that. We explain this
tendons.
to people, but we're
Yeah.
talking to a different world now who needs a different language. And that's the problem with that world, because they don't understand this and they don't want to hear it half the time, because they just want more muscle mass, because
More is better.
get
Yeah,
more,
more is
bigger,
better.
stronger. But I would then say this is now dysfunctional strength, because the strength that
Yes.
you've attained in this one particular way of working out, whether you do body parts, body areas on different days, at different sequences, so that you can spread out your workout over a week, is now just creating a dysfunctional transformation, which, yes, may be aesthetically pleasing, but all of those parts don't know how to collaborate in harmony in a refined fashion, because you're not doing it to perform something. You're just doing it to attain something. And that's very different. So it's not healthy. It's just fit for purpose for weight training.
But this is the hard part, and this is why I love it when I see myofascial magic in action. We see guys on there who are just understanding that the addition of this subtlety expands their repertoire and transforms their ability to spring and use less energy to get more
Well, it's
motion.
like,
So
I akin it to this. People say, when they talk about contractions and the type of contractions, that it's as if they only happen in the gym. As if a contraction of this muscle only occurs when they take a breath in to prepare, they do a concentric contraction, they do an isometric hold, they do an eccentric lengthening, and when they put the weight down, then that's it. That's the end of the game. That's like saying the sea only moves when you're rowing in it. Because we're on a moving surface in a moving universe, we are moving with it all the time. And if we can see ourselves as constantly in a motion of contractures, where we're having to modulate how those motions are occurring at all times, when we go into these extreme environments to add more load, to ask our body to perform under more intensity, we just need to regulate the volume of those contractures rather than only demand one type. And now you have the ability to have variability of strength that is more useful. So when you take this bulk and then you say, oh, I'm going to go and play, which is very popular now, this racquetball or pickleball or whatever they call it, which is a very fast, very rapid activity and lots of unpredictability, but they're all getting shoulder injuries at it because they're not trained to perform in that environment. They're trained to perform in front of a weight rack, or they're doing excessive loaded squats to get great glutes and great quads. Fantastic. But that does not help you walk better. That actually, it will limit your ability to walk, because you're turning yourself into a kangaroo and your tail is going the wrong direction. And it's important that we know what we're training to achieve what motion more repetitively, rather than create this excessive bulking of these muscular proteins within a fascial environment that can't transform at the same rate. So it becomes more of a defensive growth. And that's why fascia then thickens unduly to protect it, because it goes, wow, you're asking a lot of me. And my only way to manage and defend this insult to my shape and form is to thicken and prevent movement, not enhance the movement you would like to attain by weight training.
absolutely. And we're not saying don't weight train. What we're saying is understand the body's innate need to adapt and be able to hold variability. So it's part of your prehab, if you like. That means that you don't need rehab. And that,
Weight training can be absolutely awesome if it uses part of an overall health and fitness plan, which includes moving without weights. You are the weight. I mean, I'm 90 kg. That's every enough. Can I move me gracefully, powerfully, athletically, subtly, aggressively, calmly? Now load that. If I can do the same thing with load, then I'm progressing well. I'm not adding undue stresses on my body where a system of systems become inefficient. And it's always about efficiency of energy, so that we have longevity of choice And then that way you can enjoy all of these variations of exercise and sports and creative arts, because you're not limiting yourself by one style of movement at one end of the spectrum. We need a combination of many of them.
And I think sometimes people think that combination can be achieved just by doing loads of different things. But as you say, if you're weight training and then you add pickleball and the extremes of mobility versus static compression are not in balance for your body, there'll be an injury just because the structure
100%.
aren't.
Correct. That again is too extreme. There must be a blending of intention. So if you like weight training in a static arena, fantastic. And if you like the athletic nature and unpredictable nature of running at fast speeds and overshot, okay, that's good. But there must be something that takes this strength to this athleticism. And then you need another variable in the middle to let that transition occur, so you benefit from both ends. But
And it isn't about just sitting there doing a little bit of yoga. And I was talking to somebody yesterday who was saying, micro movements. And what they meant by that was just small movements. And I was kind of busting to say, this is my fascial magic in action is very much more deeply understood and applied, and years of research into medical exercise. And it's about a sequential development of these movements that absolutely ensures those muscles hold that energy and restore their original spring loading. And the pattern that we want to interrupt is the one that's basically going downhill. We want to find that magical balance so that after the first 4 R's, the rebound, recoil, release, restore, we get to be able to refine. And on that note, Paul, as our last piece in this podcast, our 40 to 60 something person, the yous and the me's of the world, and I know I've watched you in jiu-jitsu and all sorts of things. I envy the fact that the strength that you can muster and so on. And in my world of doing, I do my own kind of yoga to avoid, I'm hypermobile, and I know what I'm doing to hold back on the folds that I can do and the stretches that I can do. I can achieve them, but that's meeting the protocol. What I have to do is work with my profile, which tends to fold and bend incredibly easily. I mean, my hands fold in half both ways by themselves. I've had to learn to get a little bit more compressive in my movements, and also the stillness. So for me, one of the yogas I practice a great deal is Surat Shut, the yoga of the sound current, which requires me to be able to unwind and hold stillness, which actually isn't that easy for long periods of time. So it's another aspect of all of this that is such an asset to the body. How would you, just to kind of finish up, how would you enhance the person that lives in the middle of the road, doesn't want to be in the gym the whole time, doesn't necessarily want to go to yoga, maybe loves their Pilates classes, but doesn't need to do it, every single day for 3 hours? What's the middle?
Isn't it? It's like the elixir of life. It's the quality of the movement you're trying to enjoy doing repetitively. Like, who sits in a chair all day and doesn't get out with a bad back? Move more frequently with less intensity.
Yeah.
Well, the average Joe Soap, the 2.2 family, which is the vast majority of our communities, move more frequently, but with less intensity and more joy, more happiness. Do it with people you like. Be in communities that make you smile and interact and have more conversations. Because we live in this social media world where everything is over in a blink of an eye. And if it doesn't get your attention within 3 seconds, it's not valid. There's no validation to it. And people are looking for this validation of likes and people like me. But if you actually went to somebody and you looked them in the eye and said, "How are you going today?" you'd have a very different reaction. And maybe you do that having a walk, going for a game of golf, going bowling, going playing snooker, maybe
Go do something you don't normally do, right?
Try something different. Go and take your body on an adventure. Get yourself moving with people that are around you with like-minded. Maybe you're a mum and you've got kids and you want a break from them. Find another mother that's looking for a break and is not brave enough to say it. And you go out, let's go out for a walk. Let's go and have a coffee. And that coffee takes you to a yoga or Pilates or a gym session or an exercise, something. And just risk it for a biscuit because you've got nothing to lose. It's the only time, and this phrase I think means a lot to me. Longevity of choice is so precious because the moment you lose the longevity of choice, your life becomes an awful lot more miserable. You won't get longevity of life. I know some of the most sedentary people have lasted for into the hundred, and some of the most athletic that have died too early, and vice versa. But longevity of choice is something you have every day. And if you're in that middle
Mm.
bracket and you don't want to do the extreme training and you don't want to do the extreme stretching, you don't want the extreme natures of exercise and health, you want just something run of the mill, well, make sure that it gives you pleasure and that's something you can try and keep consistent at. So again, better to do it with people if you can. Unless you're an individual, you like to do things on your own, then go for a walk. Set your phone. Oh, it's time to go out for a walk. Whether you walk to the end of the street and it's 100 yards and you come back. Who says it has to be a mile? Who says you have to do 10,000 steps a day? Who cares?
Oh,
Just
yeah.
go and enjoy your environment. Yeah, there's a hill. Go walk towards it. Who says you have to get to the top? And that's your general person in the world. We don't move frequently enough with no intensity. Everything's an expectation of it must be hard. You must be achieving something. You must have a goal. And it's overwhelming for the vast majority of people. They've got enough to be dealing with life, bills, family, job expectations. So find friends, find company, and you will have a much brighter life and day ahead because you'll go, wow, I'm not on my own. Because there's nothing worse than feeling you're on your own when you're feeling lethargic and you've got no energy and you're fatigued just because you didn't move frequently enough to bank and improve your resourcefulness and your resources to move.
Well, since knowing you, I've got a little ball under
Yeah,
my desk that I roll my feet on. I just have a rule. I'm not sitting
yeah,
still unless I'm
yeah,
meditating. And so I'm at my desk for long periods of time. I'm an author. I spend a lot of time writing and drawing because I'm, illustrating the books I'm working on at the moment. And so I have my little ball in the back of my chair that I'm bouncing. I've got a ball under my feet. I've got a loop hanging on the doorway. So when I go through the door, just go to the bathroom or go and get a glass of water, I just do a couple of minutes of working with a loop and just waking my body up to the fact that we're in
yeah.
motion. And that makes such a difference. This is one of the reasons I just love myofascial magic in action and the feedback that we're getting from our teachers that are out there teaching this work saying just, oh my God, what happened? I just forgot the in between.
These in between micro movements, which are accessible anywhere, every moment of every day, because you don't need to go to a big gym facility with any equipment. You don't need to go
Yeah.
to an arena. What your home or your workplace is your gym. The way you perform in this environment that you spend the vast majority of your day, week, month, and years of your working life,
Mm.
if you look at the people within that environment, watch how their shape has transformed to the environment they've been asked to stay in for decades. And that's a mirror for you to go, oh, hang on a minute. Why is my head so far forward? Why am I rounded? Why am I stuck? And you go, well, if
Yeah,
I have
exactly.
to be here because I choose to be, it's what pays the bills, then use that as your gym and use myofascial magic in action micro movements, which you can do all day, every day in your chair. You don't need any fancy equipment. You don't need to put Lululemon on. We're not sponsored by them, but we should be. And that you can just move freely. That there's a freedom to being in the chair. You're not a victim of sitting. When they say sitting is the new cancer, what a load of nonsense. It's how
Absolutely.
you sit is what creates the dysfunction. But you should have the most amazing shape in your chair. You shouldn't be a victim of sitting. You should be an expert at sitting if that's what you must do the most of your day. So yeah,
Totally with you. Because I talk a lot about the sit up and
yeah,
smile gym versus the, what do I call it? The sit and slouch gym. You're in the sit and slouch gym all day. You're actually training
yeah,
yourself to sit and slouch. And if you're in the sit up and smile gym all day, you're training yourself to sit up and smile. And I bounce out of the chair. I rock back and
yeah,
down and up. And it's my little sequence. And I do it literally all the time. And I've learned not to sit wound up with my
yes,
legs wrapped around each other, hunched forward, and just forget my body. But what I really want to encourage everybody as we finish this up is just this idea of, and this was one of our fabulous participants in our myofascial magic in action course. She said the other day, I'm waking people up to move from the inside out. Do you know what I
mm,
mean? And everyone in the group
yeah,
loved it. I've had such fabulous feedback from that comment. And it really is that from the inside, it's almost like the body's got this clock going, hey, psst, we haven't moved for a full 8 minutes. Could we just, and it's not fidgeting. It's not
no, that's
fidgeting.
different.
It's micro
Yeah,
movement magic. Fidgeting's different. This is micro movement magic. And it's got such a grace to it because it restores something from within that I think is part of our original remarkable human blueprint. And I'm just so
I
proud of
think
this
that,
work.
that 4-stage process isn't learning anything skillful, that it becomes a really natural habit. And I'll just say quickly for everybody, but you first have to unconsciously recognize that you're incompetent. You don't know, so that
Mm.
you then go, oh, I didn't know that. So now you're consciously incompetent. You're aware that you weren't doing something well and that you're suffering as a consequence of it. And now you become consciously competent. You're doing things on purpose as an interrupter to become competent at doing it frequently and not suffering any of the ramifications of not, like you were only a short time ago. And then, like magic, you become unconsciously competent. It's part of your movement, it's part of you, and you do work from the inside out rather than look at the aesthetics of the outside in. And your mood changes, your attitude changes, your productivity changes, your influence changes to other people around you, and your responses will consequently change for the better for your family, your friends, and your colleagues. But it's because you went through that process and you made life a really good habit rather than get bogged down and be unconsciously incompetent and not aware that life was just overwhelming you because the expectations of the strength and the fixed and the flexible and the bendy, and you're not sure which direction to go in. And where we all should
Yeah.
be is somewhere in the middle. That's us.
Brilliant. Absolutely. Well, thank you for that, and love Edward de Bono for that principle. But it's usually used to apply to mental and intellectual working, and movement is so not an intellectual process. But I just love how you translated that into MMIA. Really, that's the basis of myofascial magic in action. Don't forget to press subscribe for more information. Come and join us if you can. We'd absolutely love to have you. And take care, everybody, and have a brilliant week.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.